Я думаю, будем...
I think we should get started. We don't have to rush it. I know all of the speakers are here, and I'm really thankful to them for giving us the opportunity to be here on the shore of the Black Sea on a beautiful day. It's just such a wonder that this auditorium is filled with people. I understand that this is the last day of work, and hopefully it's going to be a light one, because this is one of the last working sessions. Hopefully you still have interest for our topic, and we've talked a lot about big data and AI, and before we start talking about this, I wanted to think about my own story when I realized how important technologies are, and that they also bring with them certain risks, not just advantages. 32 years ago at the Moscow International Festival of Students and Youth, I was a simultaneous interpreter myself, and I interpreted in the movie Center, and they were going to bring the director Fassbinder's German film. We were getting ready. We met with members of the German delegations. They told us what the movie was going to be about. We wrote down the most important phrases, but then they brought a different movie. It was a movie similar to the story of Anna Karenina, but it was a German one because it was a long novel, and the director filled the pauses between scenes with text, and the screen was filled with text. We were sitting afar. Our eyesight was not really that good. We were squinting at the screen. It was too far away from it. It was written in Gothic characters, and I couldn't read it. And so from time to time, we would press the mic button, and then we would be exchanging between ourselves what we thought about the organizers, about the director. And in the audience, they didn't use headsets, and our voice was going through the loudspeakers. And when the movie was over, we came out of the booth. We were happy. We thought that we had translated it. We've filled the pauses that we didn't understand. And then, of course, when we didn't, we came out of the booth, and then we asked the head of the center. He said, well, everything was okay. If you wouldn't be swearing into the loudspeakers, it turned out that this mute button didn't work, which made me understand that you have to be very careful with the equipment and with the new technologies. You definitely don't have to put too much trust into them. And so at this session, we wanted to look at all of these subjects that have been discussed at large and at length, but we would like you to take a look at them from a different angle. And thanks to one of the participants, we decided to define it not as HypeTeck, but as HypeTeck, because right now there are a lot of hopes that are placed on all of these technologies. And of course, it is very important for those of us who are involved in public politics, and those who are looking at the technology from the market's angle, and those who want to make these technologies a part of their lives. It is for all of them important to know what are the really revolutionary about these technologies, and what is, conversely, something that would become a Ponzi scheme or wouldn't really fly. And of course, the speed with which the technology is evolving is so fast that sometimes we don't have the time to really evaluate whether the technologies in question are useful or whether they can entail certain risks, and to what extent the humanity can really resist those risks so that it doesn't put itself into a trap. And of course, we need to discuss that it's not just about those who generate these technologies. It's also about those who would be using these technologies, would be living with these technologies, would be part of professional lives of people. And I would like to introduce to you our participants of the panel discussion, and every one of them will tell you what their vision of these areas is, how they succeeded in what they do, so that you could hear firsthand that you can really safely deal with this technology. The first presenter will be Boris Glaskov, Vice President for Strategic Initiatives at Rostelecom. Sergei Matveyev, Director of Science and Technology Department of the Ministry of Education and Science of the Russian Federation. Kuzaev Andrei, President of ER Telecom Holding, which is also his creation. Andrei from Promobut, and the head of the fight of the robots that is taking place here. Ilya Masukh, in addition to Alexei Yuzhakov. Tamara Chichotkina, she is the business development head from Positive Technologies. Tatiana Guseva, she is the brand development head at Kaspersky Lab. And Yelena Bunina, she is the HR director of Yandex. Boris, go ahead. Thank you very much, Igor. Should I be speaking just sitting, or should I stand up? Yes. Hello, everyone. Especially those that I haven't had a chance to say hello to. I only have 10 minutes, and now I need to talk to you about the trends in the IT industry, or should I use the word digital industry? But it's not going to be a talk about the trends per se, the large clouds of big data and all of that, because you could talk about them at length. And it's rather about how to identify them and why they are needed. We all live in this cloud of trends. We're all from the IT industry together with the audience, and we read newspapers, we watch news, and they all say there are trends like this. There's big data here, big data there, blockchain here, blockchain there. These are all trends. These are not technology. They are technology package. Because IoT is not a technology. It's a set of technologies that are evolving. So they are essentially shouting about all of this. And I work for the strategy group of Rostelecom. It's important for me to understand where those shouts are coming from. Why is it important? Because if you're responsible for setting the goals for large, huge companies, and you need to set them if you understand the trends of the technology evolution for the next several years. I need to understand the objective picture. I need to realize whether big data is going to be a true and useful technology. Maybe this is just a bubble that is about to burst. I need to figure this out. I need to place my arms around this, and we are studying these trends professionally. Why do large companies need to do this? You've been here for about 5-6 days, and they keep telling you every day, oh, the world is changing radically, very fast every day. And whatever you read these days, it usually starts with something like, the world today is changing at breakneck speed. And the progress that we see now and the progress that our ancestors saw 150 years ago saw different rates of development. This spiral is turning quicker, is spinning quicker. It used to be not that critical, but now for large companies like Rostelecom, the government, which is another large organizations, they are not very flexible. They are not fast to adapt to these changes. And we have to develop various adaptation mechanisms. So if you look at the biology textbook, you would see it's not the strongest and not the largest that survives. It's the fittest. So that is why you need to study the trends so that your organization would adapt and be fit for the changes. And that's why myself and my colleagues will have to identify the real trends and see which ones are simply hyped up technologies. And how shall we approach this? In order to understand what the trend is, I have to take this apart, and I will have to do this sort of story about the background, because trend is not a static state. It's not a motto. It is something that has a cycle. It's evolving, and a trend works like this. Something is invented first by scientists, and a scientific publication is made. It goes into a database, and then the scientific discovery is made. Somebody came up with the mathematical algorithm, or there is a new physical phenomenon that was discovered. And the next phase that can be identified, it's called when you have a prototype, a useful model, or something that is protected by a patent, both here and abroad. So you get your discovery protected with a patent. That's stage number 2. When the trend has matured a little bit, then there will be another useful model. It will be converted into a proof of model, proof of concept, or a prototype. And this is something that is worked on by a group of people called startup. You've all heard the word startup. A startup is a team that attracts investments. And so the next thing that happens, you attract investment. This can be done through venture investment or through M&A, mergers and acquisitions. So let's say you have a humidity sensor that transmits something through the network to your computer. When it is something that is produced industrially, then you, as a large corporation, would think about how to implement it. It could be Air Telecom or Rostelecom, and that's going to be the last stage of maturity. So there are 4 slices here, and for every slice there are unique sources of information. For that, it's a database of scientific publications. Then there's going to be a database of patents or IP rights. Then there's going to be databases on M&As, and of course there is the internet with the hype and with the information. But a trend is not a static condition. You need to break it up into these 4 stages, and it is something that is evolving over time. Some of them are evolving quicker. Blockchain is really exploding right now. No matter what we think about how successful we're going to be at implementing it, it's really a breakthrough technology or disrupting technology. So if you want to build a technological development strategy for a company, you need to look at how the trend is evolving. You need to look at the publications database, patents database, and we did all of that. And our task was to develop a strategy. You would buy a Gartner report or ADC or some other analysts. So they will see a chart of trends, and based on this chart of trends, you will be building your own strategy. Whether the consultants are right or wrong, that's one thing. But when I was put into the job which is responsible for setting the goals, it was important for me to understand. These people came to me. They give me their vision of the trends. Why should I insert somebody else's vision of the world into my own strategy? It is important to me because I'm responsible for this, and we decided to use this new trend in studying trends, such as the use of machine learning and AI to study the trends instead of AC and Gartner, and work at all of these 4 slices and identify what we're going to be working with. This is not something that is done easily. It's simply to illustrate that. So we trained a model on about 2 million scientific publications, 2 million patent applications, several 100,000 M&A transactions, and over 100,000 articles in the mass media on the internet. So the takeout is that not a single analyst or a large group of analysts couldn't work with all of this volume of information over a period of 6 months, but a machine can. That's where the novelty is. The novelty is that we've been able to minimize the human input into this, but we've maximized the amount of work that is done by the machine working with this data. I'm not going to be going into the details of the technology that we imply. There are three sets of technologies, such as data acquisition, data processing, and data normalization. And linguistics is part of that. And then there is the analytics. And machine learning is something that is happening at the very end of this. So what our pride is about is that Rostelecom didn't hire a contractor for that. We have our own assets within our company that are capable of doing this. We have enough knowledge of the AI technologies to make a report that would not be inferior to the other reports that specialized companies would make. And this is what we got as the result, as the outcome of our work. This is the list of sustainable, stable, and explosive trends. The trends are evolving over time with various rates and speeds. And there are some trends that come up and then everyone forgets about them. But if a trend is stable and sustainable, it means that the amount of money that goes into this trend is something that is constantly growing, and the number of patents is growing. And when it is explosive, it means that it's evolving, growing very rapidly, year on year, year in and year out. Why don't we have one list here, one single list? Because the life cycle of a trend is broken down into phases, and therefore you cannot. I mean, you could, mix these three lists up, but that would not be wrong. The science is primarily relying on what's on the left. The patents is based on what we see in the middle, and then, of course, the investment interest is based on what we have on the right. And it doesn't make sense to mix them all up, and that is why we have those three lists, and that number can be greater than three. And of course, we could talk about all of each of them at length, but we decided to use AI not because we wanted to toy with it, play with it, because that was the basis for our strategic planning. And so we used biometric technologies, and we used gesture recognition and other technologies because they are needed to us. So as for biometry, we do a project with Sberbank, and for smart machines, we have other projects that we implement together with Kamaz. So this is not just a slice of different sets of data. That's just the very top list, and we could look at this in a 3D way. And in fact, this is what this trends map looks like. It looks like an acid hedgehog or something like that. And these are the trends that we've identified thanks to the efforts of the machines. We didn't teach the machines to identify those trends. What we did, we put those scientific publications through the machines, through the AI system. We selected the top stories, and there was just 150 of them, and the humans were involved at the very last stage of it. Several experts were involved. We have the top trends in the IT industry on the left for those 2 million of articles, 2 million of patents, and that's what the machine sees. The human being cannot see it this way, and this number of cross-sections and junctures that you see there is the interdependence of the trend. So, Boris, I'm sorry. When I look at this picture, this exactly the same feeling that is evoked in me that was invoked in me when I was watching that German film. Just tell them this, Boris. Of course, the materials of my presentation have a description of these technologies, and the details of this work is also contained there. 10 minutes is simply not enough to lay it all out. Of course, this is just a picture, but it essentially very difficult to understand what it means. We talk about all of those technologies that are interrelated, and you can only study them as part of specific projects. What are the conclusions? In summary, they are very, very straightforward and simple. I had another chance to speak this week, and when I was finishing my previous presentation, I said that the discussion about the future is something that requires responsibility from us. It may sound like lofty words, but the bottom line is that if you don't see the objective picture, you cannot really set proper goals for a large organization. So therefore, you have to really understand what you're doing, and machines are really helpful here. The second bullet point I would like to make, with all basically due respect to Gartner and other analytical companies, to do work that they do, one could use their own resources to do it in a qualitative way and with less resources. And not all companies are capable of doing this, but large companies, some large companies are capable of doing this. That includes us, that includes RZD. So please, whenever you are offered a trend, just make sure that you understand what they are about.
There's one slide missing, though, in this Gartner curve. There's an excellent slide there that shows, it actually reflects the concept of hype, the peak of public interest, then there's a fall, and then you can see what technologies really work. So we are at the first peak at the moment when the noise is high and when the technology actually helps to filter off something and see what is useful and what is not. Thank you. Thank you very much for this presentation. Thank you for this hedgehog, colorful hedgehog. And I would like to ask Mr. Yuriev to express the ideas of the ministry that is responsible for personnel training. Because actually, how should the labor resources be trained in the current conditions when new technologies appear on a monthly basis, so that these people could actually transform the knowledge into real skills and competences, and how young people should be trained, and how the government and the state are supporting these efforts in the area of education. There's a great temptation to say there's no way to do it, but I would like to, start saying that, every screen tells us that the world is changing very rapidly. I would like to come back to the publications and to the topic of publications. And in fact, to say that there is a method of training that would allow us to get the staff that is ready to operate in the current conditions is impossible, because the technologies provide an access, and we have some old knowledge that only means that we can generate new knowledge as well. Therefore, in the area of application of certain knowledge in IT and genetics, for instance, there are singularities. When the free access knowledge published earlier transform into patents and technologies, and these models behave differently in different countries. The larger volume of generated knowledge is provided by the United States, and there's a constant growth observed there. The number of publication grows, and we actually may draw a conclusion that the fundamental sciences are slowing down. However, in certain periods, in certain years, there would be sharp increases in the number of patents, like in 2014 and a number of other years. And this is that means acquiring certain knowledges in some areas. And singular applications in applied sciences and the slowing down of fundamental sciences is exactly the basis for such behavior. Some technologies are easily accepted, some are taken with skepticism, and last year we discussed the issue whether it's good to have genetically modified organisms or not. But we have to understand that the science has to counter to counter these gaps. In fact, the government and the state should think hard. This is intellectual economy, and only people may overcome these difficulties. So we think that there will be new people coming in, new personnel, and they will be able to overcome these problems. But, we need a critical mass of people in order to introduce these technological changes. This is a massive gray substance, but we need at least 5 categories of people. Scientists, researchers who work in laboratories, then engineers. Engineers are not looking for new knowledge, but they rather find ways of designing already known technologies are used as a basis for a new product. And then business probably is most successful when it grabs a certain product and introduces it into the market. Another category is the service engineers who may provide services in reference to a certain product that is put into the market. Sometimes it so happens that a product hits the market, but then in 2 or 3 years it just dies out. The consumers as well must be very well trained and prepared. Therefore, these technological changes, as far as these technological changes are concerned, we have to have a number of trajectories for the people so that they could actually be trained in a number of areas, including consumption, design, research, and so on and so forth. So the first precondition is the critical mass of people, then the sufficiency of this critical mass, because if there are no engineers or not enough engineers, then the fundamental science, again, will work in vain. It is hard to operate within a strict system of standards because it's not an economy of, say, 18th or 19th century when the factory would be built and people were put into that factory and they would start working. The people must be willing to do what they are doing. So in this situation, the technological change is incapable. But how do we organize these people? First of all, they have to have a clear objective. The engineers, entrepreneurs must have specific goals. Secondly, there must be a sufficient number of such people, the critical mass. As far as the Russian policy is concerned, we should all understand that the territory is great, the resources are huge, and we only have 140 million people. So this gray substance is definitely in shortage. Besides, they are scattered around various territories. But instead of this critical mass, what we can do, we can improve and intensify the communication between these people. So there are 2 main approaches to it. Some countries, the United States, for instance, and China, use different technologies. China traditionally sends its people to various countries where the people get trained in a number of competences, and when they come back home, they actually provide for this critical mass. In the United States, the economy is such that it is able to invite a lot of specialists from other countries. Unfortunately, Russia doesn't have has neither nor. Every project, in fact, must have 3, 5, or 7 participants, and they are moving ahead in developing their communications. And then we have to help this singularity process, the patenting processes and so on and so forth, development of Skolkovo projects. And then, so that's what we come to. Coming back to the previous slide, the main thing is to identify the common goal. I don't know whether you read it. I don't think many people like reading presidential decrees. So I'm the wrong person to be looking at. I like reading them. There's a presidential decree that was signed in December 2016 on the strategy of scientific and technological development, and it actually includes everything that I'm telling you about. There are priorities of scientific and technological development of the country in that decree. This is definitely an attempt to formulate how it all will look like. And in an understandable way that would be understandable for scientists, technologists, engineers, and so on and so forth. So what we have here is personified healthcare, agro and aquacultures, food, everything that is associated with robotics and artificial intelligence, transport, and so on. Why are the priorities formulated like this? They're based on our life, We have a huge territory and few people populating this area, so the technologies should preserve the human resource and the people's effectiveness and efficiency must be very high. We just have to use the power of brain to create robots. And then we have to develop the territory as well. It's also part of the priorities. Since we have huge resources and little population, then there's an intuitive feeling that we cannot use all of it, but we should definitely preserve it and protect it. So without adequate transportation, we will not be able to use the resources of the country. So later on, the policy of training, personnel training, we will definitely produce all the tools for creating careers for engineers, researchers, and to best realize the talents that we have. Therefore, the management of technological change or organizing technological change is about social and cultural interaction. That's about it, I think. Thank you very much, Sergey. We've had enough theory. Probably we should switch to practice. Mr. Kuzayev, the president of our telecom, he will hopefully tell you his success story and let us know how. And he will refer to the documents. If you allow me, I would like to speak standing. Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. First off, I would like to thank Igor for inviting me here. We used to study together in the university, and I didn't get invited to the World Forum of Youth and Students in Moscow back then. And it was my dream. But when I became a grandfather, I finally got invited to this event. So you turned out to be more lucky than I. When I was invited by Igor, he said that I should tell the story of success. share your story of success with younger people. It's a very simple truth, and probably many of you have already encountered with it. When adult, older guys like me tell you that the future is yours, don't trust them, because the future is also ours. And you still have to prove that you're stronger, that you're more ambitious, and you're clever. Only then the future is yours. I would like to tell you about a number of principles of my life principles, so to speak, how I lived and worked, and Igor asked me to tell you a success story. I think the time has not come yet for me to draw bottom lines, but it's not an anniversary kind of gathering for myself. But
Отлично, будем говорить на русском. Извините, презентация.
I will continue to speak Russian. Then the presentation is actually in English, but I'm sure everybody will be able to read it. Could we have a show of hands of those who would like to be a policymaker or an official? That's a good sign, because usually it's vice versa. It's absolutely different. Who's going to be a scientist? Not many either. It's a question to the ministry then. And my question is, who's going to be an entrepreneur? So we are in the majority here in this audience, so I will do my best for the future entrepreneurs, for the future scientists, and for the future policymakers. Because without all of us, there's no future. I wanted to tell you, to let you know of my theory of dream. In my view, everything starts with a dream. Everyone has, whether it's a child or an adult, has dreams. I'm not talking about, small-scale dreams like I want to buy great shoes, or I want a sports car, or I would like to go abroad. I'm referring to a dream that you are ready to devote your whole life to. And this dream must be born inside you, in the inner you. Without such a dream, you cannot actually build your destiny the way you want it. And I actually read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and I found this idea. The thing is that the majority of people do not even dream. They just live to live well. But to live well is not enough. The majority of people dream, but they still remain sitting on the couch, because there are always a great number of problems and barriers on the way to achieving the dream. I would have become this and that if my father was boss, or if I had that much money. But as a general rule, you don't have the money, or your father is not a boss. But there are people who dream and who just get off the couch and go and do it. So when you follow this path, which may be hard, and you're ready to sacrifice yourself, you hear the voices of your beloved, of your loved ones, and those who are close. They say, you devote yourself entirely to your dream. You don't see me. You don't care about me. But if the love is genuine, then the people who love you are ready to support you and follow you in your pursuit of your dream. So do not ever look back at those people who do not support you. There are people who dream. There are people who are supported by their loved ones, but they stop sometimes on the way. When they're close to a dream, you realize how bad it is to lose your dream. And a very small percentage of the people do reach that dream. They stop. Everything's done. The life is great. And those people who want to become great, they start dreaming again after achieving that last dream. So they just create new ambitions. And my talk here today is devoted to where the dreams lead us. I was born and raised in Perm. Perm develops oil fields, and in the early 90s I started working in the oil industry. And the main dream at that time for me was to find a huge oil reserve.
And I was 30 when I became the head of a large oil producing company. I have several thousand people working for me. I really wanted to discover oil. I wanted to prove that I'm not just a CEO. I wanted to become a CEO who would, will have an impact, will make a difference. I wanted to discover an oil field, and that would be my way of proving that I wasn't born for nothing. And then I ended up in Iraq. This is where my dream of finding big oil led me to. I worked for Lukoil, and I was responsible for international upstream activities. And together with my colleagues from Lukoil, I was fortunate to develop the greenfield in the south of Iraq, the largest oil field in the world that hadn't been explored at the time and developed. 35 billion barrels of oil in equivalent on a square area of 12 by 24 kilometers. We came to Iraq, and that's what we found there. There were no roads, there was no electricity, no utilities. There were a lot of minefields. And as we were getting the oil field prepared for development, we demined over 5,000 explosive devices. In November of 2012, we started implementing our project. In March of 2014, in Iraq, we started this largest oil field in the world. Speaking about the various facilities of this oil field, we employed over 25,000 people. We had people representing more than 14 nationalities, and 30 countries supplied their equipment, and we managed all of this, Russian oilers and engineers. But as I said, when you reach the summit of your dream, it is very important not to stand still and move on. This person, I cannot say that he was the one who changed my fate, but when I was thinking about the internet, about the changes that were going on, as I was waking up in Iraq at that oil field, I was thinking, well, maybe I'm at risk of missing out on something very important in my life. And indeed, the oil of the 21st century is the internet, is data, is information. And in parallel to the oil dream, I started dreaming another dream. The name of that dream is the digital revolution, and in the hallways here, I saw a lot of communist symbols and paraphernalia. And there was a picture of Karl Marx, and most people may not even know who they are, Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, and Vladimir Lenin. But people who were born in the Soviet Union, they know. They don't know that Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels are not husband and wife, but 4 different people. Of course, I have a theory about that, but we will discuss it later. And then there, at the bottom, it said 1917. 2017. 100 years have passed, and it says there time for revolution. But let me add, it's time for digital revolution. Indeed, rebellions and political reforms cannot change the world. What can change the world is creativity. And I believe now is that time. It's time to change the world with new technologies and new opportunities. I'd like to mention a few things about the company that we created in Perm. In 2001, we set up the telecom company by myself and a group of Perm entrepreneurs. I joined this company a few years later, and we started building the fiber optical network. We built it first in Perm, and then we thought it would be interesting for the next two cities, neighboring cities. Then we built it there, and then we thought maybe we should roll this out and scale it up and do it for the entire country. And so we decided to build the network for the entire country, for internet access, for digital television. Our analysts and business people would say, no, nothing will come out of this. Nobody needs 100 megabits per second. ADSL satisfies everyone for 10 years in the future. But I would like to say that I disagree with the trends that you've described. That's my right, and not because you are from Rostelecom, but because I doubt that Steve Jobs had analyzed the entire analytical literature that had been published and read there about Apple or iPhone. In addition to trends, it's very important to be inspired. And so we started building this company, and we were growing this fast. We grew 26 times over the last 10 years, and we didn't go bust. We became the second largest company in the world in terms of telecom access. We provide communication opportunities across the entire nation, from essentially from Vladivostok in the east to St. Petersburg in the north, west, and in the south, in Stavropol area. So what I wanted to say is that if you believe in your dream, you can create a company out of a small regional company, the company that would be ready to compete with the leading companies in the world, and maybe in future with the leading companies in the world, not just in your own country. You have to be ambitious, and there will be always people who will tell you that you are not going to succeed, but you have to believe in your dream, and believing in your dream is what will make you successful. I would like to say that we have more than 18,000 people working for our company in various cities of the country. They are mostly young people. The average age is under 30. It is clear to me that the goal is to create the future. We don't have to wait for the future to come, to arrive at our doorstep. We are creating this future. It's being created here and now. We have 3 centers of innovation in St. Petersburg, Novosibirsk, and Perm. We have over 500 engineers and developers involved in innovation. We have over 100 various partner digital companies with whom we cooperate, creating this digital future. I will use some numbers. 16 years ago, when we created ER Telecom, everyone doubted that we needed 100 megabits per second. Now, we are the fastest internet company for broadband internet access. I know that you never show less than 32 slides, but I'm about to end. Today, we claim that in a few years, we will be giving everyone the speeds of over 1 gigabits per second. You will have 1 gigabits per second in every house. And I'm also about to talk about our innovation, both in Moscow and in St. Petersburg, together with the mayor's offices in these 2 cities. We made free Wi-Fi, and any citizen of the world can come to the center of these cities and get connected to the internet. There is free Wi-Fi in Moscow and in St. Petersburg, in the centers of the city. But we're not going to stop there. Everywhere we are present, we will make Wi-Fi free. Free Wi-Fi is like lights, street lights at night in every city. It's new opportunity, smart city, Internet of Things. I'm not going to irritates Igor with the number of my slides, but we continue growing, and we plan on becoming one of the largest companies in the world in the area of telecoms. And now, from those of us who are embodying the past from the older generation, I'd like to say a few things to the ones that are younger. First, dream, and dream of great things. Number two, in addition to dreams, you have to have the will. You have to have the will, and you have to work hard. Never give up. And number three, never delay or defer. I wanted to say sex, but no, that's not what I was going to say. Never delay implementing your dreams until you get old. Never think that I will do this and I will be happy. Every day you need to be happy. You have to be happy every day. Be happy to be yourselves the way you are. Thank you. Thank you, Andrei. People have written a poem for you. And while the next speaker is talking, then you can read this poem, and then maybe you will learn it by heart and read it out and recite it for us. Later on, we'll have Q&A, but now we'll let everyone speak. And after that, we'll have someone representing the new generation of entrepreneurs, Alexei Yuzhakov, the general director of Promobot. He will talk about his path from being in the garage where he built this Promobot to the meeting of the president of Russia. We both come from Perm. I was going to say at least something. And, of course, the grandpa was standing, so how can I be sitting down? Well, how can I speak after him? That was such a motivating speech, and we are just building robots. And I have to tell everyone about this somehow. I'll try to go according to my plan. We are indeed a startup from Perm, and we've been in existence since 2014. I've been calling this project the adopted son of a military regiment, a term from the World War II era, because we have been interacting with everyone who's a great stake player. Well, certainly in 2012, I had my own business. I was involved in this Generation S project. I thought it was going to be manned by students only. I thought I would be the oldest one, but it just happened so that we used this robot that we just had assembled in the garage. We won the game with that robot. We became residents of the Skolkovo facility. We received a grant of 500,000 from the Bortnikov Fund. We were included in the projects of the Strategic Initiatives Agencies, and then we received money from the Internet Development Initiative Fund. Right now, we are the fastest growing startup in the area of robotics. We provide a lot of service robots. Over 250 of our robots work worldwide. We sell them to 12 countries in the world. About 10 days ago, we wrote a contract with our colleague from Miami. They want to install them at town towers. They bought 40 of those from us. And of course, we do analytics for all of our robots. Has anyone seen a nanobot? Well, it looks like everyone has seen them. Great. It is autonomous, answers questions, and do you know what is the most common phrase that is favorite in the States? What do you think they like it? I'll be back? I'll tell you. From Russia with love. And that's quite interesting. It seems to be a really popular phrase. The second most important. They want a picture of Mr. Putin to be put right there. What I really wanted to say is that we produced 200 robots. We understand what the market is. It's a fairly complex product that we are working on. And I always envy those IT experts who work on the software that is capable of recognizing faces, or in other fintech projects. All they have to carry with them when they go to a fair in another nation is just a thumb drive. But we have 90 kilograms worth of robotic equipment, and it takes us almost 1 million rubles to take our equipment to Singapore, for example. But I believe, quite sincerely, that we can use the benefits that are already out there. We didn't get any grants from Skolko. We're using the so-called micro grants. You simply show how much you've spent for logistics and you get refunded. But because every time we go to an exhibition with the robot, it's almost always a successful visit, and the robot gets bought. Let's say, out of the 1,800 projects that we brought to an exhibition, 1,500 were purchased by the Japanese, and several were bought by the Europeans, and then 2 more from Russia. And we came with a robot, and we showed what our robots can do. And we didn't use a presentation for that, because with a hardware product, it is very important that you can bring your product to the exhibition, to the fair. And when people see it actually in operation, that's quite visual. And we are assembling it in Perm, of course. Why are people laughing at this? Are they doing something wrong in Perm? It's not Chelyabinsk, it's Perm. And we had a case, I don't know if you've heard about our robots escaping us. Did you hear about this? But indeed, that was on all, in the headlines of all tabloids. And the guy Kawasaki wrote us a letter. And he was writing in his post, did you hear about the city of Perm? That's where robots are walking on the streets. We were building the 3rd version of the robot, and the 2nd one was on a test field, and it was gathering statistical data. Alexei, our engineer, forgot to lock the robot down. It happened so, and so the robot was gathering the statistical information, rolling around, and then we saw that the robot was gone. And we had just moved into the downtown part of the city, and we couldn't find the robot. Thankfully, his battery died, and we found it in the streets. And of course, there were policemen walking about that robot. And what is this? 90 kilograms, remember? And they cannot pull it, they cannot lift it. They had to ask us to write what has happened. And at the same time, the European World Cup was taking place, and for some reason, they were sort of joking about this. They were saying, well, I cannot understand why a robot can go through the gate, meaning the goal on a field, soccer field, and the players cannot hit a score. And I'm about to finish, and let me say that robots and entertainment are somewhere nearby. We created them to become promo bots. They were there to attract attention. Promo bot means a robot that attracts attention. But we went a little bit further than that. We get feedback from the market by showing those promo bots what is really needed on the market. And now let's say a few words about platforms. Yesterday, we saw the finals of the Promobot Challenge, and they had written their own applications for our Promobot platform. And it's very important because they can earn money on that platform. We're earnestly thinking that if we open this platform for everyone's use, and they write those platform applications everywhere, it's a new area for development. And the winning case was the robot that would do inventory taking, and it would take a picture of products on the shelves, and if there's something missing on the shelf, it will send a signal so that a product that is missing on the shelf will be brought in, so there is enough of them. And of course, we have cases for a person that would be acting as a superintendent in a block of flats. You don't need a live individual to do the work that the robot can do. So essentially, you need a robot that will be pressing 1 for letting someone in or 2 for not letting someone in. Speaking about the World Cup, it would be great if our guests could be met by robots who can now speak 7 languages. They can print out tickets. They can then score goals if the gates and the goals are not protected by anyone. But I think this can become a very universal robotechnic platform. Thanks, and that completes my presentation. Thank you, Alexei.
Our next speaker, since we have grandfathers and grandsons, we have here the middle generation represented here, Mr. Masucha. He will tell us that, not only the big projects play such a significant role, but he participated in the projects and creating projects for during the elections in 2012 and realizing the initiative when for the election online system. Thank you very much for your invitation. I have a bilingual presentation, in fact, so you can see it in both languages on the screens. It so happened that I'm an IT specialist. I don't know how oil is related to telecommunications, but Andrei is a dreamer. And Alexei is a robotics man. I'm an IT man. I lived in Moscow at the time of the youth festival. At the time of the Soviet Union, there were some international exhibitions there, and it was there when I saw a computer for the first time in my life. So it was my dream, actually, to see how these computers work. We didn't have any computers at schools at that time. And all my entire presentation is devoted to the fact that IT is simple. IT is easy. It depends on you. It doesn't depend on trends or global corporations. It depends on a couple of people who are implementing a huge project. I graduated from school in 1986 and then became a student of a university and then went to the army, and I served in the Directorate of Space. Of the Air Force and space and the Air Force, if there are people from Mongolia, for instance, I was in Mongolia, but I was just a soldier, and however, at that time, fiber optic, for instance, a fiber optic cable was already laid there, so. Then I graduated from the university, and the Soviet Union disintegrated. Russia just appeared as a sovereign state, and then I worked for IBM for 12 years. And I worked there until 2007. So there's some experience. The main experience is that the vendors and trends is just a matter of fashion, because vendors sell what they know. IBM back in 1994 was selling mainframes, and all the consulting business is actually aimed at selling what they have. And in fact, consulting firms usually sell the products of those companies who they have a contract with. So what I learned was that you have to think independently. You have to think yourself. I was asked to tell you about the projects, and the first one was the pension fund of Russia. In 1995, the country collapsed then, and for 6 months, people were not getting their pensions. IBM was then trying to sell frames, and I was the main architect of that system. The trend was, server architecture client based, and I actually managed to persuade the management that we should install servers instead of selling mainframes. The speed was very low then, up to 32 kbit per second. But I encouraged them to make a software, and thank God, further efforts were not IBM's efforts, but the pension fund had specialists who were ready to produce the database, and this project is still a workable project. It's still in operation. It became a basis for the e-government project. And it is quite advanced. This architecture still works. 20,000 servers are currently connected through telecom channels, but the architecture remained the same. It's been a long time since I quit, but people still ask questions about, scanning, recognition functions, and so on. It's the next project is Gosuslugi, or government services. In 2008, the country was quite strong, but what was happening, hardware was purchased then, and nothing was done for the citizens. The pension fund was automated quite well. The taxation service, for instance, had a whole host of servers. And then, together with Igor, we actually invented this idea, a government service. And government services was quite a new concept. It was a brand new concept. And we use that name in order to underline that the government is supposed to provide services to the population. There were a whole group of consultants who were providing advice on how to better arrange our services, but we did it ourselves, and thanks to Rostelecom, we actually used its network as a basis, and we did it so that at any point in Russia, the people could use these services. We started with passports, and then, traffic fines. And as of now, this portal, Gosuslugi, became very popular, and everybody seems to be using this portal. When we realized that it works, we decided to put together all the agencies that provide services to our citizens. But then we said that if a person wants a certain paper from an agency, then this person shouldn't be running. It's not his or her responsibility to be running around the agencies in order to get this document. The agency itself should provide the document. And that was a short, another project is the national project, which lasted for 2.5 months. We were tasked to install several thousand cameras that would operate online, and we succeeded in that. We actually attracted all the telecommunication companies, including Rostelecom, played the main role in it. 180,000 webcams were installed then, and it was unprecedented. The Olympic Games, for instance, held in Beijing in 2008, they used 100,000 web cameras, but we had 180,000, and then a million views was registered at any moment in time. So we actually applied to IBM. Nobody was ready to provide all we needed in 2 months. In order for you to understand the scale of problem, 180,000 cameras. Microsoft said 30,000 servers would be needed. IBM said 5 cameras per 1 server, and huge amounts of money, of course, were quoted. Then we came down to 300 servers and 30 specialists programmed the software, but they worked on a 7x24 basis. And this software actually was a prize-winning software in Europe. OSCE was, well, very impressed with the openness of our election. And this software is still being used. It is still used for somebody seems to have forgotten to press the button. It must be a very, very, very important announcement for all to hear. Must be a promo bot, judging by the intonation. So as far as the quantity is concerned, you know, within 1 day we managed to I know you have a lot of women in your family, but please move ahead quickly because there are 3 girls present here ready to speak. But this is the voting element of that project that is very popular. I started with trends. And these trends are actually dictated by large corporations. But if we talk about digitalizing the economy, going over to digital economy, it allows to an individual or a small group of individual specialists to ensure that a breakthrough is made. If you have a good idea, if you have a good algorithm developed, then you will be able to go ahead with the breakthrough project. So the ideas should be born in your heads. Thank you. That's all about ambitious projects that can be realized not only in business. Ms. Chichotkina, thank you very much. It's so great to be here in Sochi at the Black Sea, and it's great to have such a big audience listening to our presentations. I would like to tell you about Positive Hack Days. That's the largest event in the area of cyber security. My name is Tamara, and I represent Positive Technologies company. We develop security means security products, and we have more than 1,000 customers in Russia, and a little fewer customers, much fewer customers in the West. We are not as popular as Kaspersky Lab. However, the specialists know us quite well. So the developers and researchers in the area of security, or the so-called hackers, Russian hackers, is exactly what we are all about. But our hackers are the right hackers. So they're good guys. They are working on improving security. I'm sure that over the last few days, while you're here, you heard a lot about digitalizing the economy, that every aspect of our life is getting digitalized, but the digital economy quite naturally has its own demands and requirements, and it actually dictates how we develop our specialists. There's a huge demand for developers. I looked at the statistics in the United States, which is actually valid for Russia as well. You can see the top 10 professions that are that enjoy the highest demand. So it's great if you are studying development. By the way, who's studying IT, development, security? Will you raise your hands, please? So you think for yourself, well done, we have chosen the right path, and your potential employers think the same way, because the young specialists who are graduates of universities, they have certain expectations, they have certain requirements at a level like this, but their experience lies somewhere there. The certificates that are referred to in their resumes or CVs, they usually quote, competences this high. However, the real competences are that low. So in reality, we do not get what we paid for. So our company actually encountered this kind of problem, and we decided to resolve it ourselves. So we decided to arrange the coolest event, which we called Positive Hack Days, and it happens on an annual basis every year in May. So we get together, the so-called jackets and the T-shirts. I mean, by the jackets, the people representing management of companies and so on and so forth, while T-shirts are developers, designers, and so on and so forth. They gather together at one platform in order to demonstrate their skills. These people may not write theoretical publications, for instance, but they can demonstrate their skills at our events. And by means of this event, we actually raise the level of security awareness. We bring students who do not have practical experience, but we see the competences of those people who we meet at hiring interviews later on. Our conference is very interesting, and it's unparalleled. Like any traditional conference, you will have a conference, public presentations. I think Ilya presented once at our conference. And then there's a special part within this event where we build a town, there's a hydropower station, there are banks, post offices, and so on and so forth. And there's a team. There's a team of attackers who are to steal money from the bank or steal some information, and there are teams that counter these wrongdoers. So within a matter of, say, 2 days, the guys are show to demonstrate what they can do.
The winning team was Sarka from Kazakhstan because they were able to rob this bank, take out all of the money, and that's why and how they won the competition. It's just to show that not only Russian hackers can do a thing or two in this field, and of course NTV channel team came, and with the help of our public relations people, they made a broadcast about Russia training hackers to unlock critical infrastructure facility, and as part of this effort, we have some very practical competitions, hacking ATMs, and as much money you can take out of an ATM, you would put them in your pockets. You can essentially hack into telecom operators, automobiles, and a lot of different competitions. About 15 of them are taking place every year. Guys are playing this game. Some of them win. Some of them are winning offers to work for a company. One of the guys was very intricate and very inventive in hacking into a facility of infrastructure. He comes to the stage. We decided that he was really a great expert. We needed to offer him a job, and then when he comes on stage, we saw that he was only 14 years old. He was offered an internship within our company so that we would be in compliance with the labor law and the child labor protection laws. But what I would like to encourage you to do is to participate in all of the activities that we have, show your competences, show your skills, and show everyone what you can do, that you can really enhance your employer, and they will notice you, and you will be invited. We have our forum partners competitions that includes companies like Rostelecom, HypeTeck, and Sberbank, and they even gave us a portion of their smart home to be tested. So a vulnerability was discovered, it was exploited, and the person got rewarded for that. We always invite others, large players, internet providers like Andrei, please don't turn away from me. I'm talking about your company. This is as far as the practical side of the matter is concerned. Of course, and naturally, not everyone is interested in coming and hacking things using their computers. If that is the case, then we would like them to participate in another contest, in another competition. In studies, okay, so remember this guy, he works for the MSU, he's responsible for the young school. Send him your studies. Together with him, the program committee will take a look at your inventions, your ideas, how unique it is, and then the 3 of the best ones are going to be invited, and essentially they will be working with the security head of Sberbank and the head of the office at Rostelecom. So don't be shy. Send out your idea. Don't be too timid sharing what you have. I have had many examples when a person spoke at one conference, then at another one, then he would get an offer, and now they have a very well-known name. There is also another event that we have. This is called PH Days Everywhere. This is online participation in PH Days using the so-called hack spaces or institute. And essentially this is something that you can conduct at your own university. And the most active guys, most interested students could arrange a group of their fellow students to participate in our event. And all you need to do is just show initiative and agree that you can find a classroom We will be able to connect you to the online broadcast. You would be able to participate in an online competition. You're not going to be able to hack into an ATM in this case, but there will be other activities you're going to be able to participate in. And then you will get your awards. You'll be participating in the remote bridges through telecommunications Q&As. This is always so fun and so much alive. So if you are interested, come to us. We look forward to seeing you among us. And now the very last activity I wanted to talk about is this activity, something that is going to be useful to young developers. This is the community of the so-called this is the community of development user groups. Why did we create it? The digital community needs developers. Developers require security. And in the future, all products are only going to be secure if that is part of the development stage. So that's what we're promoting as a thought, as a concept. And we work with the largest IT players. We arrange these meetings that are free of charge at Yandex, at HypeTeck, and whatnot. We have very good keynote speakers. They talk about amazing things. I don't understand a thing about what they're saying, but it seems like it's a really cool thing. So that's at least the feedback we are getting. We also have a group in VKontakte. Please join us there with lots of publications, lots of articles. And what I would like to say at the end, whenever they say to me that it's difficult to find a job after a university, I really don't believe in this, because the employers will create a lot of activities for you, and if you're full of initiative and full of desire, you will be able to participate, and if you do, you will find a proper job for your liking. The world is changing, as we learned today. Social networks are also undergoing change, and they are contributing to this change. So a lot of people these days are more open to the outside world, so you can write a person a message through Facebook or use the Telegram channel where the professional community is. They will answer you, they will notice you, and this is cool. And in one word, please do not miss out on the opportunities that are open to you guys. Please be creative, and thank you. Thank you, Tamara. There cannot be enough security, and therefore the person that will speak next, it's a person representing the Kaspersky Laboratory, the company that challenged Microsoft, wasn't afraid to do it, and protected itself and other antivirus producers. They're now paying for that because they are being pushed out of the United States. We hope that the world is full of noble people, and that is not going to happen. They're not going to perish. And so Tatiana will talk to us about what the company Kaspersky Lab does in order to hire new people working for the company. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. I'm really surprised how many of you are here. I thought you would be at the beach right now, but since you're all here, let us talk about making careers. Well, what I was thinking, there are 3 buildings we have at our lab. We call them the men's and the female buildings, and we have here a similar arrangement. On the stage we have technical guys and humanitarian ladies, and I'll talk to you about what we do, but a few words about our company. Hopefully you've heard about our company, you probably know about us, but let me dwell on some facts that you may have overlooked and maybe are not familiar with. This year we'll be celebrating our 20th anniversary. We started celebrating it last year, still celebrating it. We'll be celebrating until the 21st. It was founded in 1997, 98. That is something that was the materialization of our founder's dream to create the best antivirus in the world. People were not believing in him. They were laughing at him, but he believed in his dream. He wrote the very first antivirus program just using only his intelligence, and that's how the Kaspersky Lab came to be. Now we have 400,000 million users worldwide. We're an international company. We've been around in 20 countries. And at the same time, we're very proud of our Russian roots. Our headquarters has always been in Moscow, and this is where our research center is. It's also a development center, and we have 4,000 people working for us, and 1/3 of them are technical experts or technicians. And they work in Russia, Moscow, St. Petersburg, Novosibirsk, and we don't have any plans to change this approach anytime soon. Our technical experts, all of our technical experts, or I would say most of them, the absolute majority of them, are Russian citizens. And this is really something we treasure. How did this all happen? Well, we've really made a lot of strides. Out of a company of 5 people in a small room in Moscow, we sprung up to 34 offices globally. And as I said, we have about 4,000 employees working for the company. What is especially encouraging, we are growing not just scale-wise in terms of the number of people, but our revenues are always growing by 34% annually. So how did this all happen? How did this become possible? Unfortunately, things are not as rosy as they may sound. There are some companies that are building their businesses on some very good trends. Our story is different. Unfortunately, the supply is the result of demand, and the more technologies are evolving, the more work we have as a company. Unfortunately, this is a very busy slide, but it's important to understand here. What is important to understand here is that the landscape is changing. In the past, we had primarily just regular users like you and me, and the hackers were just blackmailers and fraudsters, but now it's all different. And now this trend is changing, and what is the goal of such attacks are large organizations, corporations, commercial entities, and what's even more sad, it's the critical infrastructure facilities. And I think this year was indeed quite representative this year. You probably heard about some very serious attacks this year, and a lot of people suffered as a result, globally, worldwide. And my colleagues were talking to you about the robots and the smart things, and we always look at that from a different standpoint, which is, unfortunately, as we strive to keep pace with the innovation, we do not pay enough attention to security. And many of the smart things that are making our lives better and more comfortable, they are at the same time becoming a very convenient target for hackers' attacks. And they are not nice guys at all. And they are not the white-hatters, as in the case of our colleagues. And this is what we are working on every day. A few numbers. They are very simple, but they are giving it to you visually. In 1994, only one new virus was created every hour. Now it's about 13,000 samples that are analyzed by analysts and machines. At the same time, there are some positive trends that we've seen on the market, which is that all of the companies that do information security are getting united into this fight against hackers. And these communities are growing in size and in numbers. We are exchanging and sharing our expertise and information. And this is one of the tools that allows us to ensure security in a more comprehensive way. And, of course, if we go back to the subject for which you came here, the subject of IT careers, I'd like to say that this is probably typical for the IT industry. I've worked for other industries as well. Here, the main type of background that one would need to have, it's knowledge of not just products or material things, rather, you would utilize your intelligence, your brain power, And this is what we have always been hunting, something that we have been scouting all the time. And as we get more people to join our experts team, that is something that allows us to continue evolving. And that is primarily a lot of young people. I think the average age within the company is 33 years. We look forward to hiring students, graduates, high school students. We have a lot of them. And in order to make it easier for you to join us, we sometimes arrange various initiatives, and it's often outside the IT sector. Let me mention just one project. It's the Kaspersky Academy. It was created specifically in order to improve the literacy, I would say computer literacy and IT literacy of people that are really not in the IT realm, and help them protect themselves, to defend what is really valuable to them, valuable to you. I'm talking about the various awareness programs, courses, something that allow you to, know your way around things, learn about where those threats are, how to behave if something goes wrong, if you've opened the wrong window on your PC. Of course, we also hold various championships and tournaments with good awards. And right now, there is a cybersecurity for next generation tournament that is taking place right now. I can give you the link, and if you want, you can still participate. The goal is to have our expertise. It is important for us to share this expertise and our experience, because this is something that helps us enrich all of those who wish to get this information with the information and knowledge. And speaking about working for our company, we thought about how to make it simpler for people to join our ranks and more convenient too. And as a result, we created this SafeBoard program. It has been in existence for about 36 months, and now the third wave is starting. We have received over 10,000 applications to join the program. 176 people got trained, and on the 7th of November, we will start teaching yet another group, and 100 people get graduated after each course. 113 students are successfully employed by Kaspersky Lab. They are either interns or have been given a permanent offer, and that is something that allows us to have an influx of new, fresh brain and ambition. And as of now, we do not hire guys into our technical departments other than through this program. And if you ask me what is the difference between this program and other myriads of other programs, I would say that there are demands that need to be taken into account, and you've heard about them in various fora. What is needed? I think you would know that in the IT industry, there is one problem. There is a huge gap between the academic education, what is provided to people within the educational system, and what is required of the people as they enter companies like ours. It's the academic knowledge plus the practical experience. So our program is built in such a way so that this gap can be completely breached. And there are two modules there. One of them is a training module, and the second one is practical work. And as part of the training module, we teach them, we give them an opportunity to use real sites or real objects to perform various tasks. And that is something that allows them to essentially cover that gap in the knowledge and the lack of knowledge that the universities fail to provide them with. And now unfortunately, our time is nearly up, because this auditorium is waiting for another group, and we need to leave the time for the best employer in the country, Yandex. And I'm about done. That was the very last slide. We have 6 tracks within this program, and if you see one track that appeals to you, something that seems really a good fit with what you wanted to do, then please apply. We're going to launch it next year as well, and we look forward to seeing you all there. And now I turn the microphone over to my colleague. And please, Yelena, you will probably have the shortest time to make your presentation, but we see that not all of the rooms have been filled, and really, I'm very happy to see you. For many years, they have been introduced as the HR director of Yandex, and I still believe this is something like an unpaid for responsibility, but I also consider myself to be part of the realm of education, because I still work for the Moscow State University as a member of the faculty, but HR is another of my tracks, and today I will focus on HR work, and I will talk about Yandex as well. Now, the history of Yandex's education program starts many years ago. We had 800 people working for the company. Now we have 7,500, which has sort of mushroomed tenfold since the beginning. And at that time, the management of Yandex thought that there is something that's missing. And what's missing is not just the programmers, it's the developers who really are capable of performing some very intelligent work. Not working with things like big data or machine learning, which are the buzzwords these days. Back then, nobody used those words, but we needed those data scientists and big data analysts that are really treasured now, but back then there were none of them. And where could one take them?
The fact is that the universities actually produced theoreticians who were unable to start working in the companies, while the programmers were just programmers, no more than that. The data analysis actually combines the ability to program and a good knowledge of mathematics that can be applied in practice. Then I was actually invited to Yandex in order to open this data analysis school. And this is our main educational institution that that trains people not only for Yandex but for the whole industry. This is a 2-year program, and it looks similar to master's degree program, and is comparable to the programs active in various cities: Moscow, St. Petersburg, Novosibirsk. Yandex has a lot of offices throughout the country. Over the last 10 years, you know, this is actually a part-time education, and it has 4 semesters. It's just like a regular master's program. We 614 graduates over the last 10 years, and we have increased the number of graduates, 125 this year only. And these are the specialists that are awaited by the industry. More than 1/3 is still working in Yandex. Many of these specialists leave Yandex for other companies. Many go to other countries as well, and work for Amazon and a number of other platforms. The program is free of charge. Therefore, everyone who wants may try and become part of that program. When we opened this school, we realized that we are quite successful in teaching younger students, you know, because we decided that it was time already to open a bachelor's program. So we opened this department that we called Computer Sciences. It was opened in 2004. In addition to machine learning, there are some other areas covered as well by this program. So we're just providing assistance to this department. However, the competition is very high to enter that program. It's 298 out of 310 possible points. It looks like an ice hockey match, and the team has just received another speaker, Mr. Sievsky, president of Rostelecom. Listen, half of the audience is his big supporters, so that's why he actually joined the panel. I will be very brief. I will just leaf through the slides. So we went further down to school children and opened quite a large program that we are going to develop. That's a program for training school children as programmers. We're not talking about data analysis, for instance, because they just do not have enough knowledge of mathematics. And then another thing, there are 19 cities, Russian cities, and we believe that we will raise this number to 50 cities. We have quite a big program of this sort in Moscow. We realize that I think everybody here knows about this serious school, which is based in Sochi. We decided to provide assistance to this center as well. We also decided that we should be part of the large education system. So, but we went kind of downward, we started with master's programs, then bachelor's, and then we are working with school children. But, of course, at this festival, we are mainly interested in higher education. So I will tell you how we hire people in Yandex. We usually hire young people. Our average age in the company is 30 years. It's kind of growing. It has been growing for a while. But we are hiring many young people through these programs that I've just told you about. And the practice shows that it's actually the best quality hiring process, because it's the best choice, to have these people who have gone through these programs, training programs that we have. Please feel free to find an appropriate program for yourself and join us. Thank you. Well, we actually had a plan to have a Q&A, but we would like to let you ask just one question. One question to Yandex representative. Thank you very much. I will be very brief. As far as human resources is concerned, it actually is associated. I work in Rostelecom, and HypeTeck also is familiar because he used to work there. Yelena, could you tell us, please? As far as I know, Yandex has this trend of organizing remote workplaces for your employees. I would be happy to listen to your comments why you decided to operate, in this remote workplace basis. This information is not really correct. We do have remote employees, but they usually are assessors. So it's not for permanent employees of Rostelecom. In fact, it happens very rarely. When we provide the chance to work remotely, and it's kind of a super exclusion. It's done on a super exclusive basis, There's, in Yandex, people say it's good when you can walk up to the guy. But it did happen, and some programmers work on a remote basis. Well, thank you very much. I would like to thank all the participants who came here to Sochi to we do have remote workplaces in our company. I hope that this talk was very useful and interesting for us. I wish every success in finalizing this work at the festival for you all, and I would like to leave this site now for the next session. On behalf of all those who are here, I would like to thank Igor and his colleagues and say that you see the elite of the country who are in the process of creating the digital world in Russia. Such meetings do not happen often. Thank you.